So suicide came into my life in 2014. My husband, David, was a Navy SEAL. He had retired after 25 years, most of those in combat, being exposed to blast waves and other concussive type events. And after he retired, I noticed he was getting more confused, grew depressed. He had a bit of anxiety, and he wasn't the same. He was changing, and it came to a critical point in January of 2014. He was away on a work trip, and he called me and told me that he hadn't slept for 5 days. He was agitated. He was not at all like I had ever heard him. He definitely was not the Dave I knew. And I told him, come home, we would find help. And despite our best efforts over 2 months, we couldn't find anybody to help him. There was no care. Nobody was talking about this really. So it was hard to not only find care, but even just find answers as to what was going on with him. And he had gone to the VA, he had gone to a naval hospital, and he had gone to a program in Texas. Not one of them could help him. They couldn't get him to sleep. So literally he had gone more than 2 months without sleep, maybe an hour a night, and that was with medicine. And finally he had honestly just lost hope, I think. And he came home from that last one, and he took our son's tuition to school. He was in preschool. He returned some used library books, took money out of the bank, and then texted me in the afternoon and said, "So sorry, baby, I love you all." And he shot himself in his truck. And so that is how suicide came into my life in 2014. Our children were 6 and 9 when it happened. They were very young. I know it's not something that Dave would have chosen. He would never choose to leave us. But I knew he was hurting. I knew he had reached the end of his rope. And so for that reason, suicide prevention is critically important. People reach a point of hopelessness, and that hopelessness comes because people don't understand the complex nature of suicide. There isn't help necessarily when somebody needs it. It's an action that happens in an instant, really. But there are lots of factors leading up to it. And so awareness and prevention are critically important to get people on the front end so that they don't lose hope and think that that's their only answer. When Dave died in 2014, the very first thing I thought was that I can make a difference. It was literally the next day. I knew that I had a story to tell, and I knew that I had the skills to tell it because of my background in communications. And I thought, I can make a difference. And that is what helped me, because I knew I could help other people just by telling our story, actually, not even anything dramatic, just by sharing the story. Because in 2014, people were not talking about this, particularly in our community in special operations. They just weren't acknowledging that there was a problem, that people were suffering. And I remember with Dave, at one point during me trying to find him some help, he was so embarrassed, he wouldn't let me tell anybody that anything was wrong with him because he felt weak. He felt like he was letting his brothers down, and he was embarrassed, so he wouldn't let me tell anybody. And that was the biggest impediment to his care. And so I thought, after he died, if I could share the story, if I could tell other people this is what's happening and be honest about it, and show them some of the signs, and then talk about where the help is, that maybe it could help other people. And that, again, was my salvation in many ways, just knowing that I could make a difference. Since Dave died, I have been involved in a lot of kind of post-suicide help. And I think if I were to share something with survivors that I had not met, it would be that there is hope. There is still beauty in life. You can definitely find joy. I think something else that I would share with suicide survivors who maybe don't understand this is that there should not be any shame in this. I think there is still a stigma. As much as I and many other people have tried, I think there is still something of a stigma when somebody dies by suicide. But suicide is so complex. And I have always likened it to other diseases that we have. People get diabetes, they get heart disease, we treat them. So when people are struggling mentally, regardless of the cause, it's still a disease in its own way. And when he died, the very first thing I started doing was telling people how we were going to talk about this. Because I was going to teach everybody, here's how we're going to talk about my husband dying. My husband died in combat. It just took several years to kill him. It did not kill him right away. He died in combat serving this country. And nobody was going to say any different. So I gave my kids the words. I gave our friends the words. Dave in particular, you know, suicide is complicated, always. Dave, he had a lot of blast injuries, and I donated his brain after he died because I worked in higher ed all of my career. I know the benefit of research, and I really wanted to find answers for other people. And I thought, let's just do this. Let's donate his brain, see what comes of it. What they found was the beginnings of chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which most people associate with football players, but it's what we know about it is that at a minimum, it comes from repeated concussive events. But they also found additional scarring that had never been seen before. The researcher there was telling me that he's examined many, many brains. He said, I had never seen this before. He saw it one time before in a man who was killed in Iraq. And, but he didn't have permission to examine that brain further. And then I donated Dave's brain, and it came back, you know, there it was again. He saw it again. And he said, there's something here. So he started doing more research, pulling tissue that they had from other military, particularly special operations. They started doing a lot of research. They actually published an article in a medical journal about it. But they believe that it's a scarring that is unique to combat veterans from repeated blast wave exposure. And so I say that because in Dave's case, there was something physically wrong with his brain, in addition to whatever else might have been going on with him. And we know that those physical changes in his brain also led to some psychological symptoms for him. It's probably what was causing his insomnia, probably led to some decreased executive functioning, critical thinking, reasoning and such. But I also know that Dave did not come out of combat unscathed from a moral sense. He was a good man, and that was a heavy burden for him to carry. And so I know that all of these things play into why somebody may go down this path. He was carrying a heavy burden, and maybe not with all of the tools he needed to fight it appropriately. And so I think in terms of suicide prevention, there's also going hand in hand the suicide awareness, understanding what factors lead to it, and being able to talk openly and without shame helps people who may be struggling raise their hand and ask for help. Because if they think that they are going to be ridiculed, nobody's ever going to do that. And in fact, it only adds to their pain.
What's up, everyone? Just want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, Mudwater, for making OP22 possible. I've been drinking Mud for almost a year. It tastes great, and it gives you the clean energy without the coffee crash or jitters. Mudwater is a coffee alternative with 4 functional mushroom blends, each added with their own purpose. You've got cacao and chai for a hint of chocolate and a little bit of caffeine, lion's mane for mental focus and clarity, cordyceps for your physical support, and chaga and reishi to both support the immune system. Mud is Whole30 approved, 100% USDA organic, non-GMO, vegan, and kosher certified. One of my favorite things about Mudwater is the company culture and the fact that they donate monthly to psychedelic research, mental health research, and various treatments. Mudwater believes that psychedelics are a useful tool for those with anxiety, depression, PTSD, and other mental health issues. So click the link in our description below or go to mudwater.com, mudwtr.com to order yourself some Mudwater today. Each order comes with a cool box and a free frother. Thanks again, Mudwater.
To veterans that may be suffering, even active duty, there are so many resources out there, good resources. Just in the years since Dave died, it's been 9 years, there are incredible resources out there that if you choose to be anonymous, you can be anonymous and get help. If you choose to go somewhere to get help but don't have a lot of time, there are programs that are short, that can be seamlessly woven into your life that you could get help for. There is not just one place that maybe doesn't work for you. There are lots of places, and there are lots of resources online that can help get you to the right place. There's also the National Suicide Hotline that 988, and I would encourage anybody, if you're not sure, if you're having intrusive thoughts, call that number. They will take care of you. For veterans in particular, the VA has already said they will cover any medical costs associated with care that doesn't happen at the VA. If you are having suicide ideation, if you are having intrusive thoughts and need care, it will be covered. Don't let finances, money be a factor. Go seek that care. All of the programs that I know are all free, completely free to veterans, and many of them bring the family in as well. So I would suggest for any military family that's struggling, a veteran in particular who's struggling, seek out these resources. They are there. There is no shame in it. There are so many because you are not alone. You're not the only one struggling. There are people who are struggling along with you. So there's nothing to be ashamed of. Seek them out. Dave was an extraordinary character. And you hear that a lot. You hear that a lot when you talk about somebody who has passed in whatever way. You really do hear these extraordinary stories. He was everybody's best friend. He was super funny, and loved to play pranks. Smart, but just a rascal. Like, he loved life, and he didn't mind. I think maybe this is my favorite aspect of Dave, and he had many, but he didn't mind being a fool to have fun in life. And it made everybody else around him feel comfortable, let their hair down, and have a good time. Like, truly, when Dave came in a room, he put everybody at ease, and then the fun commenced. And I think that probably is my favorite aspect of his personality. I don't know that there is one particular time, but I will say that a favorite memory is in our kitchen. And we would cook dinner, and we would play the Rat Pack music, like Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis. He loved them. And, the kids were young, and we would all dance in the kitchen every night almost. We would be making dinner and playing music, maybe having a glass of wine, and we would always dance in the kitchen. And I would say, my mom told me one time when we were young and she was talking about family, We may not have a lot of money, but boy, are we rich. And those moments in the kitchen dancing, I would say we were really, really rich.